Welcome back to another episode of the Political Ones podcast. We're going to get right into it. By the time the late 1940s arrived, the Chinese Civil War had reached its climax, and it found that following the events with a mix of fascination and concern, the mainland, the communists led by Mao Zedong, were gaining the momentum against the nationalists, or the Kuomintang, which was led by Chiang Kai-shek. That fighting was brought with millions of lives lost, entire cities devastated, and communities torn apart by shifting allegiances. Meanwhile, Taiwan became a critical refuge for the nationalist government as Chiang and his supporters retreated to the island to continue their claim over China. When the Kuomintang arrived in Taiwan in 1949, they brought with them a government in exile, determined to maintain a vision of unified China. They imposed martial law and tightly controlling political activity and suppressing dissent, an era later known as the White Terror, where thousands of the Taiwanese were arrested, imprisoned, or executed for the perceived opposition and creating an atmosphere of fear and tension. Yet, despite this repression, nationalists also established institutions and schools and military structures, laying the foundations for Taiwan's future governance. Taiwan became a laboratory for an alternative version of Chinese governance, which the Kuomintang ruled as a one-party state, emphasizing loyalty to the Republic of China and resistance against communism. Meanwhile, the local Taiwanese population, shaped by indigenous traditions and centuries of settlement and decades under Japanese rule, maintained a strong sense of identity and community. This tension between imposed governance and local identity defined Taiwan's political and social environment for decades to come. International recognition played a significant role in shaping Taiwan's trajectory. For years, the Republic of China retained its seat as China in the United Nations, which recognized by most Western nations as the legitimate government of all of China. The Cold War context amplified Taiwan's importance as the United States and its allies viewed the island as a strategic buffer against the spread of communism in Asia. Military and economic support from the U.S. helped Taiwan survive politically while also maintaining its claim as a separate entity, even though the nationalists still officially claimed sovereignty over the mainland. During the 50s and 60s, you can watch as Taiwan transformed under Kuomintang rule by economically and socially, with land reforms and redistributed property to local farmers while increasing productivity and stabilizing the society. Education and industry expanded, creating a more modern economy that could support Taiwan's growing population. Yet the political freedoms remained limited and the memory of repression lingered, reminding everyone that survival came with strict controls and sacrifice. The U.S. involvement during this period was critical, and you can remember realizing how Taiwan had become a focal point of the global strategy, according to some. American military aid and training and political support reinforced Taiwan's ability to resist any communist attempt at an invasion. But at the same time, the U.S. encouraged Taiwan to modernize its economy and its infrastructure while strengthening it as a Cold War ally in East Asia. The support created a delicate balance, with Taiwan was secure from immediate threats but always under the shadow of a larger geopolitical force beyond its control. Looking back, it fascinates me how Taiwan, an island with such a complex history, which had become a symbol of resistance and survival, the convergence of local identity and foreign influence in the global politics created a society that was uniquely prepared for challenges, yet vulnerable to external pressures. Nationalist retreat to Taiwan had inadvertently created a separate political reality, one that would eventually evolve into thriving, self-governing society. And as you can see, this period set the stage for Taiwan's transformation into the modern democracy, while also laying the groundwork for the tensions with China that continue to dominate international attention today. As the 1950s unfolded, it began and I began to understand how just pivotal Taiwan had become in the broader context of the Cold War. The United States viewed the island as a critical buffer against the spread of communism in East Asia, and Taiwan's survival became a strategic priority. The Korean War only reinforced the perspective, showing that the containment of communist expansion required firm alliances and forward looking defense strategies. The United States quickly moved to provide Taiwan with military support and arms and training to bolster its defenses against potential communist attacks from the mainland. In 1954, the U.S. and Taiwan formalized an alliance through the Mutual Defense Treaty, signaling America's commitment to the island's security. The treaty allowed U.S. to station forces and provide weapons and intervene if Taiwan were attacked, creating a deterrent to communist aggression. But at the same time, the nationalists consolidated power internally, strengthening their government, military, and administrative systems to survive in this precarious position. I also found it remarkable how Taiwan, despite its recent upheavals, had become a key player in international strategy almost overnight. Through the 1950s and 1960s, Taiwan experienced rapid economic and social development, supported in part by U.S. assistance. American aid helped modernize the infrastructure and improve education and expand industrial production, laying the foundation for Taiwan's later economic miracle. At the same time, the nationalist government remained authoritarian with political dissent, which suppressed strict controls and maintained to ensure stability. Taiwan's survival relied not just only on military protection, but also on maintaining a strong, organized state capable of navigating the global pressures. Now, tensions between the U.S. and China were never far from the surface during this period. The Taiwan Strait crisis of 1954, 55, and 58 brought the world to the brink of war with artillery exchanges and aggressive posturing on both sides. The U.S. played a delicate balancing act, showing support for Taiwan while avoiding direct confrontations with China whenever possible. By the early 1970s, global geopolitics began to shift, and as the world watched, the U.S. reconsidered its relationship with China. President Nixon's visit in '72 marked an historical moment, opening the door for normalized relations with the People's Republic of China. This created a complicated situation for Taiwan, which had relied heavily on U.S. recognition and support to maintain its international standing. Now, to address this, Congress passed the Taiwan Relations Act in 1979, which was a law that allowed continued arms sales and defense commitments while officially recognizing the PRC as the legitimate government of China. Taiwan Relations Act created what came to be understood as a strategic ambiguity, which was a delicate policy that both reassured Taiwan that U.S. support and avoided provoking China unnecessarily. Under the framework, the U.S. committed to helping Taiwan defend itself, but never explicitly promised full military intervention, leaving both allies and adversaries guessing. This ambiguity has shaped Taiwan's security strategy ever since, forcing the island to modernize its own forces while relying on the implied protections of its powerful partner. Looking back, it's clear to me that the U.S. policy during the Cold War laid the groundwork for the complex web of alliances and deterrence and tensions that defines Taiwan's status today. Even as Taiwan grew stronger economically and socially, you notice inseparable its fate had become from global politics. The island was no longer just a local territory, it had become a symbol of the ideological struggle between a democracy and communism. Every decision from arms sales to diplomatic recognition carried immense strategic weight, shaping the future not just of Taiwan but of East Asia and the world. Now, this period cemented the United States as a crucial player in Taiwan's story, a story that continues to enforce geopolitics to this day. Thank you. And until next video, peace.